Hey folks, this is Tolly and welcome to Let's Do Some Game Dev. I don't know, we're going to be working on the video game a bit today. It's been a couple months since I've had a chance to stream, been pretty busy with work and things, and to be perfectly honest, kind of burnt myself out. Like I normally do. I get too into streaming for like a month or 2 months and then end up like just doing too much of it. But yeah, I've been working a lot on the JRPG game a lot. Some pretty big progress, and today mostly just gonna be working on some bugs and some small feature improvements on the combat mostly. Yeah, that's mostly it. So what are we doing? So let's restart this battle. So been a couple months since I think I've shown stuff. Last thing we did was cutscenes. When did we do cutscene stuff? When was that? That had to be... The cutscene stuff was 3 months ago was the last time we showed anything. So in that time, mostly been finishing up the front end system, and then last few weeks have been kind of diving back in and reworking the combat system, because the combat system was using a lot of older art. Trixie wasn't super happy with it anymore, and so she ended up coming back through and kind of redesigning a lot of the monsters, and we opted to go with using the dungeon art that we were already using for the combat art, and kind of treating everything as isometric instead of kind of a profile side view that we had before. It's been feeling a lot more unified since doing that, which is pretty good. And then this past weekend, I spent a bunch of time kind of refining a lot of the timing of a lot of this stuff. So getting it so that there's actually like the character saying what attack they're going to use above their head. Being able to have the particle and the text all separate. They were all playing on top of each other until recently. So got a lot of the pacing of the actual like using of an ability down. Squashing a character is a little weird. Definitely not what I want to have for like the final version. Ooh, Shadow Slash extends beyond the box. The text there was overwriting. I have to take a look at that. So that's another bug I need to take a look at. But there's several small things that I want to tweak. First and foremost, we have this yellow selector, which is supposed to be indicating whose turn it is, and it's supposed to be moving around between the different characters, but sometimes it gets like stuck, and I'm not sure what's going on there. And I haven't quite been able to nail down exactly what the cause of that is. But yeah. Yeah, some different monsters. Redesigned the Flame Rat, which was an old monster we had from before. Can we get this to ×2? Not without pulling the hierarchy down here, I think is the main way we have to do that. And then I think console also has to come down to here, which is not ideal. Yeah, there's not really a great way to make that bigger. I could put console over here for the time being, so I can see what's happening. Okay, so selector, yellow selector is on Fala. We attack Flame Rat. Yellow selector switches. Oh, right. I need to reposition some of the monsters too. The positions are no longer really lining up. The tiles are also supposed to be seamless. That's a different problem for a different day. The lines that distinguishing the kind of the spacing isn't really supposed to be there. So the line is still continuing to move the way I intend it to. It's just at my guess is it's on death. I think what's happening is if a character dies, we're not deallocating their selector properly. Can I use a potion on myself? Does that work? Oh, that does. Cool. Text even tints green. I haven't actually tested that in like 6 months. Okay, so that guy died with a selector on him. Yeah, now the selector's just gone. Okay, so I think it has to do with selector not getting deallocated on unit death. Might be like the primary problem. So let's see if we can figure out what's going on there. Where would that live? Death. I think we call it knockout. Knockout status effect. So on Awake we do a bunch of things. This is us actually like animating the character and squashing them using a scale to size. And we scale them out, but down to 0 on the Y. So right here, will we post a death notification? What does the death notification do? That goes to the combat manager, and we have an on death function, which is removing that character from the round. Okay, so this is potentially a spot where we could deallocate the selector. Where does the selector normally get deallocated? We have a move to center position, which is a poorly named function. This could probably be renamed now to start unit turn. And then we have return home, which is really now end unit turn. These used to move the characters to the center of the screen, but now it's just doing this setting of the allocator and deallocating of the allocator. So when does end unit turn get called? On sequence complete. So something's weird about, like, I think it was already broken, because technically the unit shouldn't have a selector if it's their turn, unless somehow they use an ability that actually killed themselves. So when Fala attacked and the selector squished with the character, the selector had already broken. At a fundamental level, it had already gotten stuck, and I just hadn't noticed, I guess. So it's not related to death. Yeah, it's moving around, it's moving around. Fala's turn, this is all fine. When is the moment that it breaks? Pretty happy with the timing of everything, though. Kind of playing through everything, it's still feeling pretty solid. No, okay, so that unit died. The selector is still moving around correctly. I don't know if selector is even the right... Oh! It broke. Okay. So at this point, it should actually be on... Who is this? This is Fala, based off the skills. So then... we deallocated from the goo ball, allocate it to the thief, deallocate from the mushroom, allocate to the goo ball, deallocate from the mushroom, allocate to the mushroom. Oh, something's weird about that. So we allocated the selector to the mushroom, deallocated it from the mushroom, allocated it to the goo ball, and then deallocated from the mushroom? Allocate it to the thief and then deallocate it from the goo ball. Something is super messed up. Oh yeah, there was like a double allocation here. We allocated to the mushroom twice in a row without deallocating it. Where did this is on select next in turn order. This is on select next in turn order. Weird. Okay. So this all gets called from the same places every time, right? Yeah, it's always on selecting next unit in turn order. We tell it that it's their turn, and then when the sequence ends, we deallocate. Oh. we select the next in turn order before deallocating. Oh, it's a timing problem. So this is technically allocating the yellow selector to a unit, and this is removing it. But if we ever have the same unit go back to back, which can happen with the way that my turn order happens, currently anyways, then if we ever have the unit go and then they go again back to back, then they will allocate it to themselves twice and then not deallocate it in time. I think I can just do this, and that should solve that problem. We first end the turn, then we select the next unit in turn order, which logically makes sense anyways. Alright. Cool. That should hopefully fix it. And then I also want to move the mushroom while I'm at it, or the whatever unit is in the back position, because they're currently offset. Let's shift some folks around. So this rat is here. I want to change your position. Hierarchy view. Don't care about the status bar. I want the unit. Might be faster just to go through. Enemies, 3 spawn point enemies. This guy. Okay, so I want to move you. The exact position here is going to be tricky. Yeah, this is going to be kind of eyeball-y. Which I don't love. At some point I'd like to get it so that we could like lock them to like certain snapping points rather than just free dragging them, but for the time being, let's preview this. Half this value possibly? This looks like it's approximately goes to negative 1.55 and then half that value is too much. Somewhere around here it looks like. Looks to be about right. So that is one off of her position if we were to follow that up and do kind of one over, and then that is one off, so then I want to move position 3, just gonna make things symmetrical for the time being. We'll move to there-ish. 25, that looks like either 05. Could I just do -1? Nah, that looks a little better, honestly. Okay, so let's see. So this one needs to be these values. No pad time, because Unity doesn't save values when you're running. So if we just move that over to here, this one needs to be -1.05 and -0.25. And then the first one we're modifying to -1.55 and -0.9. Okay. Try those modifications. Okay, let's give that a try, see if things look a little bit more even. Yeah, that looks right. The question now is the selector in the good position when they get targeted? Okay, well, we didn't move him, and he looks fine. It is not. Wow, he's really off, huh? Alright. So then let's... use the selector as a guidepost, I guess. Okay. Yeah, so how do we... That selector... Is that parent under that unit? So that is fire chunks. Yeah, so there's the selector indicator. So if we move this up, oh, moving the wrong piece. We want to move this one. Zoom in double. Yeah, kind of hate this. I'm gonna just grab the scene view and move it over here so I can have a little bit more granularity control. Huh. So that's the right spot for the selector, but that looks way off with the actual, like, unit itself. So where is this thing? That looks correct. All of the data for its positioning looks good. So why is this guy so out of position compared to, like, where the flame rat is standing? This is all the same data too. Huh. He takes up a 48 by 48 box and he's near the bottom. And he takes up a 48 by 48 box and he's near the bottom. Fascinating. Which is also words for I don't understand what's happening. I mean, like, at a fundamental level, the fact is that this should be, like, closer to here to look right for him. But I don't know why this thing would need to be in a different Y position, because I'm, like, setting this for most characters. So if we move this under, like, the flame rat, and we move it to be 0, 0, then 0 0.05, that positions perfectly. But if we move it underneath of this guy, 0.05, it looks completely wrong. Okay, let's try swapping the rat out, because maybe it is just the positioning of the actual units. So if we put the rat in, so they have the same feet position. So if we look at, like, right here where the foot position is, and we switch them, they're relatively in the same position there. It just looks wrong because he kind of... Oh, I see. The white space in front of him looks correct, but he just is longer, so it feels slightly off or wrong. It feels mispositioned. Huh. It's a weird optical kind of illusion. So it might look better if we did this and then moved him down slightly. to there. Then the question is, I want to keep this value consistent. I don't really want to have a different Y value for the selector for each and every unit. Oh, so then that also is going to be true for the characters. Okay, so let's try Flame Rat first. So if we go to Flame Rat and we make this 0 and then 1... oh god, what were the values? 1.15. So if we change this to here, change this to 115, 0 that out, and then we move this whole thing down to there. Now it looks off center for the Flame Rat. Annoying. So yeah, we might need to have different selector positions for each character. Oh, so annoying. Okay, that's fine. Where am I going to store that? I have this old script called selector, which I think is no longer even being used anywhere. Are we using these values? We post notification, but no one listens to it. Post notification, but no one listens to it. We post notification, but no one listens to it. Okay, yeah, so I don't think this thing is actually being used anymore. Pretty sure I've replaced that with a new system a couple weeks ago, but I just never cleaned up the old script. So we could repurpose that. Or I say whatever, and I just... let it live for now. I think that's fine. Okay, let's get the other rat in the right position. So this guy. So let's assume that we're not going to have a custom value for the time being, and this is just the position that we want it to look right at. And then... nice. Nailed the Y position just slightly off on the X. Okay, so then here, change this to 0.6. And then this one we're changing to 1 and 1.5. Again, I don't love how wishy-washy some of these positions are. I would much prefer if these were like better placed, but... okay, so this is a different enemy encounter. This is the slimes and the mushrooms. So when these guys get selected, this cursor should be right for all of them. Yeah, and that doesn't look bad for him. It's mostly just the red guy that looks kind of off with the way that he's kind of like positioned. So that might be honestly maybe an art fix that I could like pass back to Drixie as like, hey, could you like find a way to position this guy such that he doesn't look weird when we have him in the same spot as everyone else? Cool. Alright, that's working. Next thing. So we've got those characters positioned better. We fixed the target selector being wrong. Next thing on the docket, let's put the scene view back over here. Next thing I'd like to do, combat bugs. I think that's fixed now. We just saw it. When the characters are attacking right now, we're just seeing little red orbs fly off of them. Those should really be different colors based off of the type of attack that's being done, and I'm not sure when and how that broke. So let's see if we can take a stab at that. So, okay, so they're attacking. These guys have elemental type moves. Let's see if they use them though, because they do have a chance of just physical attacking instead of generating shadow energy. Come on. Generate shadow energy. Attack myself. Come on. Because I don't want to kill them. I guess I could attack the mushroom. There we go. Shadow Bolt. Okay. So these little orbs of fire are not what I want anymore. These are an old asset that Drixie made like a year ago. And we'd like to replace those with new art assets, which I hope are in this version. Just clicking down through, trying to find the particle. Does the particle not exist? Huh. Okay. Particle pool. Okay, found it. So, oh, interesting. It's actually a particle system. Oh, I built this with a... okay, okay. Here. So this is an elemental particle. This is of the lightning type. So who calls for a lightning particle? Because this gets generated somewhere. It's going to be in the production elemental produce. So inside here, we find the position that we want to move to. We allocate the elemental particle. We grab it and we play it. Particle ID. Particle ID comes from the element. The element comes from... drop down. What type of element to produce? Okay. Okay, there's some weird steps there, but I see it. So then each of these should be different, is what I'm getting out of that then? These each have a single prefab they use called elemental particles. But it sounds like each of these should be their own prefab. Alright, I can make that change. Yeah, because each of these are different. Alright, so this is in a search and destroy section. So we're going to move this out because we still need this for the time being. I'll probably replace this at a later time. But in the meantime, we need to find a place to put this. We don't need environment open. We don't need the sprite sheets. Don't need any of this stuff. We need a spot inside of combat art. Prefabs. This will work. So we will put this all the way up here. Find a proper home for it. Again, I don't love this system, but I don't really feel like overwriting it. There's a bunch of small things I want to tweak. Interesting that this has the addressable ID Firepoint. Wonder if anything is actually using Firepoint. Honestly, probably the easiest way to check is to just like delete that old one. Let's do fire elemental particle. So this one's using fire, but we want to replace that fire pearl object. We want to change that with a different one. Sprite sheet. Oh, this one doesn't have... Oh, worst case scenario. I don't have Trixie's latest version of the elements. Oh wait. Nope, we do. They're in the same spot, just this old one never got deleted. Okay, so we have this thing which has some more pixely kind of elemental effects. Let's try just replacing these and see what happens. I don't know if this particle's going to look good anymore with the new art. So instead of that, let's replace it with fire. And then we're going to want to do the same thing for each of these. So we're going to want to do one for ice. Going to do one for earth. And we're going to do one for shadow. Okay, and then in here we're going to replace this with shadow's icon. We're going to replace this with ice's icon. Going to open that first. So shadow, ice, fire, and then earth. Okay, and now we just need to hook these up in the hierarchy. So fire particle pool needs this fire one. Lightning has now become shadow. Shadow used to be lightning a long time ago. Shadow, although still called lightning, but that's fine. That's a harder thing to change. Earth becomes earth. Ice becomes ice. Alright, I don't know if this is going to look good, but let's see what happens. So let's stack these again so that we can do full ×2. Let's take a look. Okay, I mean, they're way oversized, but I think that's fine. I think if I wanted to scale them down to be their actual size, they would actually be very small. And if we do that, I would want it to not just be 4, but maybe even, well, let's do a quick experiment. So what size are these set at? They're at 0.3. There's a formula I found for this recently. I made a specialized particle tool for importing the sprite sheets for the game, and there is a particle tool I wrote called particle folder to particle prefab, and in here there is a formula somewhere for what the size needs to be to make it match. So it needs to be the texture width divided by the number of tiles, which in this case is 4, divided by the sprite's pixels per unit. So let's get a calculator. This sheet that we're using with all of them in it has a width of 32. So 32 divided by 4 tiles in it, divided by the pixels per unit, which we're using 64. So we need to make the size this for it to be the proper resolution. Let me, there, whatever, I'll fix it. So here, starting size is 0.125. And it used to be 3. Okay, let's see what they look like if they're sized pixel perfect. So they should be the exact same size as everything else now. Shadow Bolt. They are not. They are not. I mean, clearly this pixel is bigger than that pixel. So what did I mess up? I didn't modify shadow. That would do it. What did I modify then? Did I modify the old one? I modified the old one. Okay, yeah. Let's delete that guy. And let's see if the game complains. I don't think anything is using it as an addressable anymore, but... yeah, we have some errors about some order of operations on some things being missing. I should probably actually resolve those. I thought they were pretty benign at this point, but those look to be missing asset issues, which is fine. Okay, okay. So that was properly sized. Let's see if we can get it again. So we can do flame stab, which will pull them out, which is pretty reliable. So if we do this. There we go. And 1 pixel should be about 1 pixel. They are. They're offset in the scene, but in the game, if we zoom really far in, we should see that they're like aligned properly because of our camera settings. Okay. So they're flying in. Do I like them at their appropriate size? Oh, and they're gone. Weird. I wonder why they disappeared like that. Interesting. Okay. Actually, I don't hate it. I kind of wish it was more intense. And so if we're doing this via particles, there is kind of a nice benefit to that, because I think if we come into here and we just change this to emission count 4, if we made this count 6, it might still work. I'm gonna leave it alone. I don't want to play with it right now. It looks fine. It's not perfect by any means, but if it doesn't work, we can just change it back. Let's change all of these to 8. Actually, we only can see shadow and fire right now because no one is using ice or earth-based moves, so at the very least, let's just test with those two. And then shape is circle. Yeah, so this should just make a more of an interesting shape. Yeah, it's fine. I don't love it, but I think it's perfectly reasonable for now. It kind of gets the idea still across, and it looks a little bit more full than what we had before. Eh. Neat. Okay. Keeping the art consistent. That's neat. So then, yeah, let's fix ice and earth while we're at it. So emission, we'll change this to 8, and earth, we'll change this to 8. Okay. And I don't want to mess with those particles too much because honestly, I made these like a year and a half ago, and I don't really fully remember how they work. I was surprised to find out they were particles. I thought I was animating each one of those individually. This can go. This can go. This is still necessary for other things. Settings can go. And for now, I want to hold on to these otherwise. I'm trying to get rid of a lot of these older assets. That's what this is search and destroy is for. And as we've been removing assets, that's what we've been getting errors about. So I need to figure out where is the ice orb trying to be loaded from. Who's trying to load this? Some sort of utils function? Utils combat. Combat manager? Oh, we have an initialize where we try and the elemental manager tries to initialize all of its elemental color pairs. Can we just replace each of these? Because we've basically gotten rid of the old orbs. Can we replace those with these things? No, because they're a multi-sheet. Is there no way to make individual... Is there no way to have addressables but have it per individual sprite? Doesn't look like it, huh? I guess that kind of makes sense because addressables are loading a file, and each sprite is technically a part of this. Are each of these issues to do with the elements being missing? That one does. That one does. I can't see what the issue on this one was. Oh, this is on Fire Orb. And then this one is also on Fire Orb. Weird. Okay, so let's go to the Elemental Manager. I don't know if we need these anymore. What were these used for, these elemental pairs? We had 2 of them. I think this is old code that can be removed, is like legitimately my feel on this. Okay. Let's try deleting it to get rid of the errors. So what if we just, I don't know, comment it. Well, what if we go to the root? Who's calling this? In init hookup. Where's init hookup being called? On awake. And on get highlight. And on get low light. And on get sprite. Where are these being called? Inside of the round icon, which doesn't exist anymore. And inside of the cost. Oh, interesting. Yeah, these are old systems, which I might want to keep maintenance on. Okay. all right, fine. So there's a system. Hello, our unlockable characters. I will be right back. You've successfully alerted me to the fact that I don't have a water bottle on me. I knew I was forgetting something. All right. All right, hydration complete. Thank you. I appreciate you. All right, so we don't currently use get sprite from the Elemental Manager, and we don't use get low or high. We don't use any of this, but there is a possibility I might want to salvage it in the future. I think we fully disable it. And if we want to build it back up again, we can come back and bring it back to life. But for the time being, I'm going to not initialize this, and we're not going to use it here. We're not going to use it here. We're not going to use it here. And we're not going to use it here. Make all of those changes, and then let's pin some stuff to the top so that we get 2 rows. Okay, Elemental Manager. Now, low light and highlight. Where are these used? Similar type situations. Okay, this is done in this spot here, similar to where we just commented out. This is the same idea. And same idea. Okay. And this is where highlight and low light were getting used. So by commenting all of this out, we should prevent us from ever trying to access that array. And we can try and uncomment it out and bring it back at a later point if I really need to. Okay, so let's run and see if we still get errors on launch. We do not. Cool. Okay, so we resolved that. Cool. Slowly making things look better and run better. There's a bunch of warnings when we close the application. That's less of a problem. I'm less concerned about that. So seeing as we made that change, though, I do want to go into those spots where we commented that stuff out. And we're just going to add a to-do. Commented out as elemental manager doesn't have sprites or elements, or doesn't have art assets to load currently. May revive later. Cool. Let's add that to each of the spots we changed here and here and here. And then also in the Elemental Manager itself where we commented out the init code. Cool. So we got rid of those errors. That was not something that was on my checklist for today, but you know, find it, we solve it. Next thing, MP does not refresh until your turn activates again. So if we come into here, and we attack our friend, we're waiting for someone to use fire energy so that we can consume it to do an attack. There's the fire attack. All right, produced fire. Now we just need to wait for it to be Ward's turn again so that he can do a fire stab. Okay, fire stab. So we can see that we are highlighting that these will be consumed. There's a new variation on this art as well that's coming soon, but for now, so we use 2 of those pips, but the UI is not refreshed, and then when we get back towards turn, then they update. So when we consume these elemental points, we need to call to have those refresh. So let's start by figuring out why are they refreshing on the start of turn. Let's start by looking at what they are. So they are combat UI, screens, action menu, target, base. It's under base. We have a status bar manager, and then there's a bunch of these status bar components. So we can zoom out a bit to see which one we're looking at here. This guy. Okay, so this guy here is a unit data driven parent component, is what's updating all of these subcomponents, and all of these subcomponents are updating all the information we see on the screen. And I believe status bar manager is in charge of those. Yes, we have a list of the screen components in here. That list of screen components we add when we initialize. We run through all the units and we allocate from our game object pool a status bar component, and then, you know, basically save it out into this list. And then whenever we call refresh, we refresh. So we are looking for who refreshes status bar manager. Looks like combat base screen has a init and a terminate, but not a refresh. Is there somewhere else inside of status bar that gets a refresh call? Not as far as we can tell. Okay. So it's only referenced in one spot, which is here. Okay. Let's take a look around. So action bar menu. Do you have a reference to status bar components? You have a reference to something else? No. Okay. So then next idea is let's try and figure it out by actually putting a breakpoint in, because it's not immediately clear where that refresh is getting called to. And because I'm using so many like interfaces and stuff, it's actually, there's 99 different references, because this isn't including just this class. There's a lot of things that all have refresh. So rather than try and track that down, we're just going to put a breakpoint in, and we'll attach to Unity. All right, and then enable debugging for the session, and then let's go back to playing and see when that gets hit. So we're attacking. It's a little laggy. Oh, did we freeze? Interesting. That's new. It does not like debugging and streaming simultaneously, seems to be the problem. Shadow Bolt. Attack. 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 Skills, flame stab we can't use because we don't have any fire points. These guys are generating shadow points. To do shadow slash. Okay. So we're waiting for it to get back to Fala's turn. This refreshed, but we didn't hit this breakpoint. Interesting. So then the refreshing isn't coming from its parent. Oh, is there special logic inside of the actual hit, the MP points themselves, maybe? That seems likely. The MP system was carried over from a system before we were so heavily, like, componentized. And so it's possible when I carried that over, I made a special script just for stat toggle. Yes. Okay. So this is where we refresh the component for the toggling of the stats. We figure out the MP change. We tint it different colors based off the MP change. Otherwise, we actually change it to white or black tint. Again, I need to get Drixie to make me actual sprites for these because I don't really want to tint these. I'd prefer to actually change them to different icons where they're actually like her color palette, because we're trying to keep everything 15-bit. So don't want to tint things because it might be outside of the color range she wants. But Drixie shouldn't have a problem with that, but I will just need to make a task for that later. Alright, so this thing is listening for selected notification and deselected notifications. On selected notification, it is caching the ability and refreshing the component. On deselect, it's caching the ability and caching and refreshing the component. Or setting the cached ability back to null, I guess. If we have a cached ability, we're looking at that ability to figure out what the MP change would be for us using it. Otherwise, we should be updating. Okay. So then the problem must be that we call this on deselect notification before we actually modify the MP values. Where does this get called? Who posts this notification? Gets posted in several different locations. Gets posted on close deselect. Fascinating. Okay, so when we yeah, the problem is we call on deselect when the character chooses their action. So when we actually hit attack, the moment we hit enter, is it here? No, because when we go into targeting, we would be closing these screens too, right? So the moment that we hit here, we refresh it on deselect. Okay, so there's a potential bug there that I don't like either. I just want to get to a shadow slash. Because what that's indicating to me, if I'm reading this code correctly, is that the red goes away when we are targeting as well. I need them to use shadow magic. I'm going to use a potion because I feel like it. Yay! Shadow Bolt. Okay, that produces shadow energy. So yeah, it's red right now. It stays red. Interesting. So based off the code I'm reading, that should actually be deselecting at that point. On submit, we open the targets, the combat target select. On close deselect. Maybe I need to better look at where this is happening. Oh, I did. This is on close. All right. Well, I'm gonna take a quick look at what's happening here because I'm a little confused. So this is on sub ability. I'm gonna do it in each spot. So each spot where we call deselect. This is here. This is here. And this is here. Okay. So then when we hit here, we're not calling close. Interesting. So when we submit here and we go into targeting, is this a... On submit, enter into the target screen here. This is where I want it. So from the base action menu, oh, it's actually not, we want to do it from not the base action menu, but from the sub action menu. In here, I want to put a on submit when we go to targeting. Okay, so if I hit enter here, it goes from the screen where we're in the action menu and we're going to transition into the target. We're going to take a little trip down through our screen controller. Oh, did I pass it? Shoot. Okay, try that again. I hit some buttons too fast. So we're walking through our code. We are opening a new screen. We are entering into here. We are getting screen by ID. We are getting the instance. We are entering into the open. We are calling update. Okay, and then we are new screen open. Update selection to null. Close screen. We can loop through. We are not swapping screens. Oh, I see. So there's a little bit of a hidden mechanic in my screen system in which some screens can be overlays. And if it's an overlay, we don't call close on it. So that's what's confusing me a little bit. So the targeting is an overlay. It hides the information for the screen, but technically in the back end, we're still technically in the sub action menu. So if we hit enter here, then we'll call close. Hello, Kazukish. Welcome to the stream. We're just hanging out and chilling, working on some game devy things. Hope you're doing well. It's been a little bit. So we do call close here. So close to destination screen. We're on submit. Yeah, so we basically close all the way out through all of our screens back to the base screen, which is like we stack all of our screens on top of base screen. So we enter into the action menu, then the sub action menu, and then into the targeting screen. And then when we actually submit a target, we basically close the target, close the sub action menu, close the action menu, and go back to being in the base screen. Just take them all down off the stack, please. Like if you think about it like a stack of cards, we're just removing each one. So at this point is when we call close, and on close deselect, we call the notification. There's a couple breakpoints, but we call the notification for deselect, and then that's going to get hit by our, what was it called? It was the toggle guy. It was toggle. Stat toggle image component. Yeah, in here, that will call and hit here. So if we hit a breakpoint and hit F5, yeah, we hit this guy. We enter into here, we set our cached ability to null, and we refresh the component, which in turn refreshes the MP. But the problem is we haven't minus the MP yet. All right, so good understanding of what's happening. I feel pretty good about what's happening now. We refresh this. It looks like actually we might be refreshing it multiple times, because each time we close each of those screens, we refresh it, which is slightly problematic and performance bad, but those are improvements I can do years from now. So the problem then that we're running into is, when do we actually reduce? So we have a play and wait combat step. In here, we basically do all of the show the like the text above the character's head, gray the character out, perform the particles and stuff, and that all happens through this. But specifically, the performing of the action is inside of this resolve. This resolve basically just calls ability.perform, and perform basically goes through and applies all the effects. And some of those effects are cost based. So if we have something that has a cost, ability cost component, nope, that's not it. That is the UI based thing. There's an elemental cost, ability magic cost. On did perform notification. So there is a notification called on did perform, and that notification gets pushed by the ability. So after we perform all of the different actions of this thing, we basically say, hey, we did it, we performed the ability. And then the magic cost, as well as the produced ability produce, it looks like, listens to that, and at that moment it minuses our stats. So something needs to refresh the UI. Something needs to go, hey, the backend knows that the stats have changed, but we need our MP to refresh on the actual UI, so someone needs to tell them. That can be done in several different places, and I'm not 100% sure which one I like the most. Could do it right here. We could try and get access to something that could cause a refresh. here is probably fine, honestly. We can just do a pretty straightforward call. Yeah. Okay. So at this state, the base screen is in charge. Does Screen Controller have a refresh? That's not what I'm looking for. There's not a refresh. This is kind of a weird one. So this is the first time really that I've had a situation where there's something happening outside of the UI. Most of the time when I've built all of my screens, I haven't been doing a lot of gameplay work. I've been doing screen stuff that happens within screen. So you push a button in the screen, that causes a refresh on elements within that screen. This is the first time that like a gameplay event is happening that I now want to use a refresh on a UI part of the game. And I think it's not unreasonable to have a screen controller refresh current screen. So part of the reason I like this as an idea is this is where my brain went when we first started looking at this. My first instinct was, let's go look at the screen and let's see where it's getting refreshed to, or where the screen might be doing the refreshing. And then it was like, oh, it's not. Well, where do I go then? And then there were some hidden functions that were like doing some refreshing. And I actually don't love that. I think I would prefer if we had the ability to just call refresh. So let's do a refresh current screen. If I don't like this, if this ends up being an absolutely terrible idea, we resolve it later. I don't think we need any data. I think we simply are just gonna have it then go to our stack. So we have a screens. So we will peek the current screen. So we're just looking at the top screen. And honestly, we could probably just do refresh. We can't. We need to do screen.refresh. Because technically this screens is not actually screens. It's screen data. It has a bunch of other auxiliary information, including the actual screen. Okay, so then this simple set of code we can now add here, which I don't love. I don't think I want to have this hidden inside of the cost. I think I want to have this, because this we might have multiple different components that need to refresh. So let's make the call that after we resolve this, we go screen controller dot instance dot refresh current screen. Okay. This whole action step is basically just saying call this function specifically in the right timing of things. So this will just happen at the right moment. Is all this is setting up. Okay. So now if we go back in, we should be able to attack and see the actual, or use an attack that costs mana and see the mana update at the moment where the ability starts resolving. So we need someone to produce fire. Attack with fire. That's a no. There we go. Okay. Now we just need to get back to Ward's turn. Fire. Oh, no, not Ward's turn. Follow's turn. Do. All the fire. So he's going to take 2 mana pips. He uses Flame Stab. And as he performs the ability, the MP disappears. Okay. I don't know if I love the timing of it. It might be better if the MP went away at the very beginning, but I have a system now to refresh the MP. So that's another bug crossed off the list. What do we want to do now? So that's pretty good. Next steps. Okay, I got 2 big... okay, I have a really big bug, which is really a whole feature. I don't know why I labeled it as a bug. And I also have something that's also kind of annoying. I don't want to do these things. I have to do them, but I don't want to do them. Okay, let's tackle Fala. Okay, so what's happening? Let's talk about the bug. So right now, if I go to Fala's turn, and we have Fala here, there used to be in the combat system a way to hit Y, which on a controller would also be Y, to switch characters, to switch to the Mimic being the current unit, the Fala character, which is our rogue character here, and Giju, our Mimic, would switch places. They would alternate spots, and now you would have the skill set and the options for the Mimic. And the Mimic has the ability to create shadow, and then you could go on the next turn, switch back to Fala, and then use that shadow you created to do Shadow Slash is the idea. But somewhere along the way, when I did a huge refactor a couple months ago to change the whole combat system to use my new screen system that I've been working on, I broke that. And when I say broke, I think I just didn't implement it. So like, I didn't realize it, but I can't swap characters. And I think I just didn't write that code. And I don't know how easy it's going to be to rebuild. So let's start by digging into how we rebuild. So we need the ability to press Y and to have characters switch places. So let's go combat screen. So combat screen base, action menu. So if we're in the action menu, I should be able to hit Y here and have the characters swap. So I think we should have a on secondary. We do not have an on secondary. Let's go look at the base screen. Some of this stuff is handled for me. On submit, on deselect, on submit, on select, on process, on secondary button press, which is basically our Y button. So in here on secondary button press, excuse me. Oh, it takes no parameters. Okay, that's fair. Here. Let's remove that then. So when we press the secondary button press, I don't think we need any of this. We want to switch between the main character and the other character. And we want to re-update the menu. Action menu. If we call update on this, This action menu is of type main menu component. It will clear everything as a part of it. Okay. So that should just work. So, sorry. What we need to do then is I think we just need to do... This is current unit. This is unit group. So we need to get the unit group. We need to swap. So we have a can swap. Neat, neat. Where is that used? Is that used anywhere anymore? It's used to tell whether or not to show an icon, which that icon isn't being shown. So I'm going to have to hook that up as well. So if we can swap is the first question. If we can swap, then we should try and swap the units. But how do we swap units? Is that not a function that we have? There's a get front. There's an add unit. There's a get abilities. There's start and end turn. But how do we actually swap units? Has that been lost to time? I feel like this might be hidden inside of the companion scripts. Swap row positions. This is what I'm looking for. Okay, so this exists on select. And this is because there used to be code where we would show all of the abilities, and if it was an ability of each character, we'd switch, but we changed that at some point. But I think this is still what we want. So we want to do unit group, get front unit, get component companion, companion does not equal null. Companion dot swap units. That's not right. Oh, companion dot swap units. Swap positions. So this should switch their positions. And then oh, we're going to need to readjust their selectors probably as well. We might not actually. This might actually be handling this readjustment for us through some magic. But does this not... This doesn't actually change their positions. Like, this changes their positions visually on the screen, but it doesn't change who's in front, I don't think. Oh, this might. Oh, I see. Yeah, this... So when we're getting these rows, we're getting the current row, which is front or back, and then we are saving that, and then we are setting the companion's row to the alternate, and then setting whatever the original person had to the one we stored before changing it. Okay, so yeah, we're swapping. We're swapping their positions, but that swap is actually also readjusting their positions. This gets modified. This doesn't do this anymore. I have to find where I adjust their positions, because these values changed when we went to isometric in the combat. Okay, well, first off, let's see if we can get this working. So, swap positions should do everything I need it to do. After we call swap positions, then we need to update the menu again, but update the menu with the new unit that's in front. Okay. I don't know if this is gonna work, but I'm hoping it does. Okay, well this one can't swap because Ward doesn't have a companion. Gotta wait for Fala's turn. Okay. Like I said, the positional data is weird, but they are swapping. And the objects are working as well. The question is the selector. If I attack, does this attack Fala or does this attack? It does attack. Okay, so everything is swapping correctly except their positions. I just want to say that I know that there's a lot here and that it's probably really hard to follow, but this is really cool that it took me a very short period of time to actually make it so the characters could swap and everything else just worked. Like, other than the one thing I knew that was wrong, which was the positional data, everything else, just the selection modifications worked, their status bars moved to the right places, everything. Like, the only thing I guess we didn't check. You're right. I should pause my excitement unlockable characters and I should hydrate. But the one thing we didn't check here is whether or not we can actually use Giju's abilities after we swap. So we're gonna suspense. I'm gonna pause for or mute for a second to drink, and then we're gonna check. Okay. Skills. Fala's Shadow Slash. Y press. Shadow Bolt. We can use Shadow Bolt. We can use Shadow Bolt. Everything worked. Everything worked except for the positional data is now different. So let's see if we can try and figure out where that's happening. I want to say that's inside of the Combat Manager? Question mark? There's a different spot from swapping where we align the characters as they load into the game. And for the life of me, I don't remember where that is. In general, the whole loading system feels a bit janky to me in general. Like, I think I want to... It's very old. It's from, like, some of the very early videos. And so I think I want to just try and take another pass at it at some point. To kind of bring it to the future. There's a lot of better coding practices I've been doing recently. What other character-based things are there? Character loading manager is what I was looking for. So this is initializing the units. Does the initialize code set their initial positions? Doesn't look like it. Does create unit set their initial positions? Looking for anything in here that's setting a position. That's gonna be a no. Oh, my mind is failing me. I don't know where we set their positions on initial load. There's definitely a specific spot somewhere. Okay, what if we go to companion? I could also refigure it out. I could literally play with the positions to try and figure out where they're supposed to be standing. But I'm going to just do a quick, really bad idea of looking at local. We're going to kind of just take a quick look around here. That's for the selector. Set row position is where we were. That's where we were. It's not actually that many places where we set local position. That's where we set the ability. Oh! Oh! That might have been the trap. The value I'm looking for... No, that's not right. No, losing my mind. Okay, well, let's just modify it then. I can't find where it's supposed to be, so let's... Let's just modify it here. So front is at negative 0.05, and this is... starting Y is starting local position on start. I'm going to get an idea of... I'm going to just start playing with it, because I can't figure it out just by looking at it, so we're going to just do the classic modification. Okay. So that moved him down. So... if we just do 0.0 F, where does that put them? Maybe it is just that function that's setting their initial positions, but it just doesn't work when we switch them. Oh, okay. We just need to not use the starting position. We need to... Okay, well, I found it. In playing with it, I found it. Cool. So this is swapping them back and forth. I would like to update the selector when we do that as well. So where does the selector get updated? The selector gets updated in the same class, I think, that we were modifying. In start unit turn, we are moving its position. So when we can swap units. So I think what I want to do is, it was also instinctual for me to have a swap units inside of here. I think I'd like to do that. So I think we're going to do a void. We will validate that you're allowed to swap internally. We're going to hard make it so that you can't do this otherwise, and we're going to just return if you can't swap. And then how did we swap inside of the combat action menu? Action menu. Where did the action menu go? Why is everything everywhere? Combat action screen? Action screen. In here, we were just calling get front unit, not... Yeah. Okay. So... on swap, we just do this. Technically, we don't have to call this companion as not null. I'm going to do it anyways. I'm going to be extra safe. Technically, this should be covered by this call inside of can swap, so you shouldn't be able to get here without this being valid, but regardless, let's say that's good, and then this will swap their positions. Now, after swapping their positions, I think we want to reposition the allocator, or the selector. So we shouldn't have to set its position. Yes, we do. We need to reset it to be the new front units of transform, to be the thing that it's underneath, and then reset up its local position. Yeah, so we just do this. Okay, so that should move the yellow thing for us. This is fine. So now instead of doing this, we'll do unit group swap units. And now we're doing a redundant if call, but I kind of like it. This is just making sure that you can't do it. All right, cool. The other way we could do this is we could do bool return false or return true. And then if you magically somehow manage to get here, which I don't think you could, we'll return false. And then instead of doing the redundant can swap, we just call swap. And if swap returns false, we don't update the data. And then because I like condensed code, I'm going to get rid of the brackets because it looks cleaner to me. All right. Even though everyone tells me that I'm wrong, I'm going to do it. A lot of people really don't like it when you get rid of the brackets, but if you only have a single line after the if statement, you don't need them. Okay, so then Ward's turn, we'll attack this guy. That guy will attack Fala. Fala's turn, we switch to Giju. Giju can use Shadow Bolt. Now, if I'm in here and I hit Y, nothing happens. And that's because we only have the Y press happening here, which is good. It's good to validate that that is working. And then if I'm in this screen and I go into targeting, I can't hit Y to switch either. Yeah, which is intended functionality. Okay, cool. So that is working how I want it to. It is debatable whether or not we want to have the swap inside of here. Like if I'm in the skills looking at my skills, I might want to hit Y to switch to the other character and just have it refresh to their skills instead. But for now, this will be fine. Having it happen inside is slightly annoying because we have to call back to the previous action menu and update what was the selection. Oh, and the yellow thing is updating, which was the other thing we just modified. That's cool. So yeah, so now the intended functionality is working again, that we can come in here, we can do Shadow Bolt, that will produce Shadow, and then when it's Fala's turn again, then Fala can use that Shadow to attack. Like half the game was broken by not being able to switch characters, but okay, and then we can come into here, we can do Shadow Slash, consume that Shadow energy, and do another big attack. Oh, interesting. So because so we found another bug. Because we haven't been able to switch characters, we haven't been able to see this functionality either, but there's this idea that when the characters are in the back, I call this like mana, but really it's kind of more like a stamina point system, that you need to have enough points of stamina to be able to use the ability. And the concept I'm playing with is if the character's in the back row, they regen 1 stamina. And you often, I've been seeing that the Mimic turns gray during that process. Oh, interesting. As if it's gaining that stamina. Or gaining that MP, whatever, it doesn't matter what it's called. But you gaining that point back. But that was the first time we've actually seen it happen. So here we Shadow Bolt. She's going to get a point back. It gets the point back, but then it refreshes green. But as soon as a character takes another turn, it goes away. So the timing on it is a bit bad. Huh. You can also do Flame Stab. You can't do that attack, but now you can do this. So yeah, we're going to have the Mimic gain 1 point here. It should really be showing that 1 point increase at this stage. Like if we're going to use the action, we should show the green point here. We get the green point showing here mid-turn, and then it refreshes with the plus. You get the little blue plimp, and then it still shows green even afterwards. So something is wrong with the timing of that. And as soon as another character takes an action just to finish that point, as soon as this happens, this is refreshing the screen again, because we call screen refresh after every character action now, essentially. And so, which is also bad, but anyway, I will figure out a better way to refresh the screen in the future. What we have is fine, but the refresh is causing that green dot to go away. So, but why does it go wrong the first time? So what happens in that set of circumstances? Technically, it is another sequence, so I'm pretty sure what's happening is Giju is playing a sequence that doesn't have an ability associated with it. So it should be calling resolve, and the resolve is a special case resolve for rested status, which is allocating the pool, Setting hit information, but it is actually modifying the stat, isn't it? Yeah, it sets the MP to this new value. So it's getting this +1 and it's setting it. And then after setting its HP up, we refresh the current screen. Oh, so I guess the question is, why does the green appear? What is causing the green MP to appear? Magic. Nope. What was that called? Toggle? Toggle. Stat toggle images. So we are toggling images based off a stat. So why does it go green? When we refresh, if the current active unit is not null and it's not got an empty unit group, we check the row and we check whether or not the row is not null. And if our row position is currently in the back and the current active unit group is us, then MP change will be +1. So at the stage where we refresh, technically there is still it is in progress, and so we refresh to +1. That is annoying. So we would need to wait to refresh the screen until sequence complete. Just gonna play with it. What if here we refresh at the end of the turn? I imagine this timing is still gonna feel weird, and I think what I need to do is build a more elaborate system. Oh, right, now we can switch skills. Yeah, I don't love that, because now the MP doesn't change either on them using an ability until at the very end. Yeah, I'm going to need to build a more elaborate system. I'm not going to be able to solve that bug right now. It's going to require some more thought. I haven't given that enough thought. So he's going to get the +1. And then, it goes up and still does the plus with the green. Interesting. That's annoying. Oh, that's not what I want to do. I want to reopen this guy. Yeah, so I like it here. This didn't even work. And that's because the current ability sequence is still set to something, I guess. When does this get set to null? Like, when does this get, like, gone? Because we... Never? It's never set to null. It's always something. Is that the problem? Would the MP rested system work? Toggle. Stack component. I think this if statement is just wrong. I think this isn't how we should be determining the +1. This should be actually like when we're in the targeting screen selection and we're in the back row. Show the +1. That's the problem. Set that back to the way it was. And then, yeah, let's see, what if instead... If we refresh the component, only data we have is unit. There's like a more complicated system here that I'd like to get to. But for the time being, I'm gonna just try something real quick. That's funny. All right, ignoring that. So we get an on selected notification, which tells us what the cached ability is. With that cached ability, technically we should be able to figure out whether or not this is us. Yeah. If we have a cache, because the cache ability is already checking that, right? Is there something that determines that, like, I'm the specific person who's got the cached ability? There must be. Because otherwise... That's fine. I'll resolve it later if it's not. Okay, so let's assume that if cached ability is not null, then we check to see if... store data.row, and if our row is currently in the back, then +1 MP. What if we did that? I think that might be what we're trying to do. And then let's just comment all of this out as a big block for the time being, as I try and find the right timing on when I actually want to show this plus green indication in the UI. Dun, dun, dun. Whoa, it's been 2 hours? I've been having too much fun, apparently. It has been 2 hours of this nonsense, I say. So let's use Shadow Bolt. Produce some shadow energy. Attack. Well, that's annoying. They like hard wrecked Giju and now... Alright, alright. Oh, and I didn't even... Okay. It's fine. It's fine. We'll get it on the next round. I forgot to switch and actually attack with the Mimic. Oh, I'm so happy that I was able to get swapping back in so easily. What a world. Just need them to come up soon. When is it Fala's turn? So I would be expecting here that we have a cached ability, and that cached ability should mean that we are showing some plus minus MP change. Oh, I guess not, considering technically this is not the same character. So we don't see like a plus minus on Giju in the back row. Okay, so we need to figure out when these on selected calls are coming in. So this comes in... Oh, it only comes in if we are specifically... if it's specific to our unit. This is... the way the observer system works is it validates the sender. So the final thing here, which is stored data, which is a unit, it makes sure that it only receives this message if the message is being sent by that unit. I think we override to make it seem that way. Okay, so only Fala gets this message, but really I want Giju to get this message too. Because if Giju got the message, we could check to see if, like, cached ability display info. No. What am I looking for here? Can't I get... we only get the ability out of it, but we could get the unit. And if we get the unit, we could check whether or not that unit is us or our companion. And if it's our companion, there's a bunch of steps we can do here to make this work. All right, fine. Let's do it. So now everyone will get these calls on selected and on deselected, but it'll be up to the individual units to decide whether or not to interact with it. So internally, we're going to need to check if, after we get the information out, we're going to need to check if the info dot arg0. You know what? I'm going to just make my life a little easier. We're going to change this to .arg0, and we're going to have this be not info, but ability info. Yeah. And then I don't have to do this arg0 stuff everywhere. I do technically need to check if it's null first now, though. Slightly annoying. So we need to do... fine. You win. I'll do it the hard way. Or the slightly more annoying way. So arg0 is technically ability info. We can check the unit, and we can check whether or not the unit is equal to... store data.unit group. So store data.unit group. And then unit group needs a new thing, which is get unit. We want to have a public bool contains unit. And we're going to check whether or not the unit that we're getting is in our unit group. Unit. And we will do return. Can I just do units.contains? Unit. I can. Nice. Winning. So now we can just do contains. So we can check whether or not our unit contains the stored unit. If it does not contain our stored unit, return. We can just do this. If any of these things are true, just leave, because this message isn't for us. And then we only store the cached ability, but I think I might want to change this to actually just store the cached ability info. It doesn't give us any more real cost to doing this. We can rename this to reflect that modified behavior. Okay. But now we have to do ability everywhere. Here. Cool. Magic. Nice. Want to do the same thing down here. Good. That all looks right. Okay, so now we should get this call on both Fala and Giju, our rogue and mimic, and they should both get this information, except this now needs to check whether or not we're the unit in the cached info. So if munit equals stored data, do this. Otherwise, else, I think by its very nature that means we'd have to be in the back row, so I don't think we need to do any of this extra logic anymore. We should just be able to do that, honestly. Yeah? Maybe. I don't know. I wrote a bunch of code for 5-10 minutes. Let's see if it actually does anything. Should though. Not sure when that message was. No, they're gone now. I missed someone. Oh, I missed Fala. Let's go again. Okay. Skills. Can't use Shadow Slash. Switch to Giju. Use Shadow Bolt. Shadow Bolt done. Now we wait till it's the next turn. None of my actions really matter. Just waiting for the next turn. There we go. Okay, and so as soon as we refresh one time in here. Oh, interesting, on back it doesn't work. But as soon as we choose anything, it just changes to green. And it essentially stays green. Okay, so there's something wrong with when we hit the close button, which kind of makes some sense. I could see reasons why that would be true. I want to fix that, actually. I think I can fix that really easily. So on action screen, on open... Update, update, update. What do we do on select? We post a notification of the selected information with ability info stored data. The data of the first. Okay, so we should be able to do on select and then data driven menu dot stored data dot. No. From this menu object, which is a data-driven screen component. It's not actually a menu. We need to get the actual menu. We need to do menu dot get first, which should give us back a game object. It's not actually what we want, though. What we actually want is some other stuff. Can we do a search? I feel like I do this elsewhere in the code. Kind of. Update selection. With get select. That's not really what I want. I feel like there's spots on open where we like initialize data. Actually, I think I fixed this a while ago. That's why I'm not seeing it, as I think I baked it in. So we should be getting into here. This should be sending this notification. Okay, okay, fine. I'm gonna finish testing this and then we'll dig into why it disappears on select. It's like the only spot it disappears too. Basically, I do like that. It should be green at all times, unless I switch, in which case it should go away. And it's not going away immediately on switch either. Okay, there's some timing issues on like when we refresh, but those should be relatively easy to iron out. Okay, so if we come into here and we actually attack with someone, it's green, it's green, it's green, it's green. I heal, and it stayed green too long. So what's weird about that to me is we should have gotten on deselect call. And on deselect, the cached info should have been null. And if it's null, there should have been no mana change, and therefore there shouldn't have been anything. Huh. On close, on close, on close. Alright. Alright. Let's work through it. It's mostly working, though. I think it all routes down to when we're calling on select, though. Specifically in the action menu. Okay, let's rerun. Skills, Shadow Slash. Neat. Switch. Okay, let's set some breakpoints. Attach to Unity. The nice thing is this isn't happening like in runtime. We can kind of test a lot of this stuff just by like entering into things, like just going through these menus. So if I hit back, I'm hitting back, which is doing an internal back of that, which is updating the screen to the last selection. We call update, we call update, we call update, we call select. Select calls select on the actual game object. Unity does a bunch of magic stuff, which then ends up calling on select, which invokes our selection, which then calls that to our callbacks, which calls that to our menu components, that calls that all the way back up to our menu. So here we should be pushing a notification of something being selected, which is sending off the data for skills in Lightning's menu. Okay. So if we put a breakpoint in the, let's tag that up there. Don't need this open, don't need this open, don't need this open. This guy is who I want to tag. So in here, we should get a notification and we should get the refresh component call in here. Okay, so we hit this, we've posted notification and we're getting a call on this. The stored data for this is thief. So thief is getting updated with cached information and believes HP +1. And that's because the cached unit is lightning. Is that right? Oh, we're coming back in again. I was not expecting 4 calls. Oh, we're getting another on select call. This second on select call is still coming through the same system, it looks like. Input, first change. Fascinating. Okay, and this time we're sending lightning on skills. Same idea. 1, 2, 3. Interesting. That was weird. But then we're calling close. Oh. We close after. Oh. And this calls deselect, and deselect makes it go away. Oh, that's some weird order of operations. That is some weird order of operations. So let's run through it, which then calls us through here one more time. Okay. So when we call close, we say, hey, we're going to the skill screen, and we're going to the skill screen on with lightning, which is the old name for Giju, here. That gets a refresh call so that she gets the +1. But then after we've refreshed that this is the selection we've made, we then close the previous screen, which says, hey, we're deselecting. And then that causes it to break. So I don't want to fundamentally change like the order of these things, because this is in screen controller. It'll affect every screen in the entire game. So that's not how I want to fix that. The fact that we're having this much trouble implies to me that like this whole event-based system is kind of not ideal. We're hitting the on deselect. Yeah, the order of operations is just completely wrong. Thinking. Thinking. The problem... Yeah, I don't love the event-based system. Whatever is currently selected should be what's currently selected. The fact that we have to on select send a notification and then on deselect call send a notification is kind of like the root problem. We should just know what's currently selected, and based off what's currently selected, we should... This is technically global. Okay. This one comes in from the data. Whichever button we have selected, we tell them we have selected. We want to call this one time. We want to call this one time specifically on the target screen. As long as we are choosing an option, we are always just sending over and over again selections. If we are sending this close, we want to call it at one opportunity at the very end when we are finishing targeting. So if we go into the target select screen, when we do on submit, we want to call post notification with no override sender. We want to have the deselect notification name, which can be like this. And we want to send an info that is null. We don't care. We don't care what the info is. We just want to send a message that like, hey, we're deselecting everything. This is only being used by the toggle system. The toggle system is the only thing listening to this. So on deselect, I don't care if the info is null. I don't care what the info is. I don't care about any of this. I just want to set cached info to null. And then I want to refresh the screen. And I want everyone to do that. I want everyone to refresh their screen. Do I want everyone to refresh their screen? That's a bit... That statement's a bit messy. Is there any way to tell who's attacking? Ability info unit. Okay. Ability info is this. Ability info unit. Combat. Action screen. Dot deselect. We send this call. Now that we're sending that call with the actual ability that was targeted and used, now we can look here and instead we can do this call. Yes. That should work. I'm getting pretty burnt out, so I'm probably going to stop soon. This may or may not work. It might take a couple tries, but I'm not 100% confident anymore. But on close deselect, when was this getting called? Only here. This is a weird janky call anyways. I don't love that. We just remove all of it. And we're going to remove all of it for every one of these screens. I don't know why I did this. This is like a weird conversion thing I did. Where when I was converting from the old system to the new system, it's bad code. Okay, we'll get rid of this. I might be wrong. It might be that this is super crucial that we are on close deselecting properly, but I don't think so. I think the way that we've overhauled systems, we should just be calling the on select until we get to the very end when we actually confirm a target, and then we tell our UI, hey, we're done, you can refresh yourself with no information. So now there should only be one deselect call, which is right here, and then there's a bunch of on select calls, but that's because we need to update every time we choose a new option. Okay. Okay. Yep. Okay, let's just stop debugging. Go away. Switch to controller. Oh yeah, it breaks if I open the item menu and the skill menu. That's a different bug. it's not removing the options for the other ones. Okay, so it's staying green no matter what I do. If I switch, it does stay green regardless though, so that's a problem. So the switching part needs its own calls to probably just call update, to be honest with you. And then if we actually attack with them, does the green go away? Does not. Does it go away the next time someone takes a refresh? It does not. It stays forever now. Okay. All right. So it's more broken. Yeah, the red's interesting too, that like the red's sticking around now. So there's a bunch of issues. I made it worse. I don't know. Well, that feels right, honestly. It generally feels like I'm waning on energy. What are we at? Are we at like 3 hours? No, we're still just over 2. Okay. What do we got left? Yeah, there's like 3 more things I'd still really like to do. Okay. Well, at the very least, let's see if we can solve this problem. So, what is the thing that I'm most confused about? I think I'm most confused about when I hit the final select call, like after I hit go on targeting, it should be deselecting the unit, and so their MP should be refreshing, but it's not. So if I switch here, when we perform this action, these red pips should go away and this green pip should go away, and they should go away specifically because we're calling deselect. So let's go into the target menu. Let's add a breakpoint in here. Let's debug attach debugger. And if I had to guess, on closing all the screens, we are continuing to call select over and over again for some reason. That would be my guess. I would guess that this is getting called, this is getting called, and this is getting called as we close out of the screens. And then just to be sure, we're going to come into here. We already have a breakpoint. Cool. So we're going to hit go on this. We are entering into the target select screen. We are selecting a target. We hit the refresh component from somewhere that I wasn't expecting. Interesting. On submit, we are closing to destination combat. So we do that first. Okay, that's actually kind of interesting. As we close, we are thinking that we're opening back up to the sub menu. So as we do that, we update our selection, and we update our selection causes us to call down through all of these functions again, which is causing us to refresh. Interesting. Okay. Fascinating. So After that, we hit a pop screen. We are popping the sub-action menu still, but we hit update one more time through a different section. We are now hitting the on select call on button press, which in turn is calling the on select, which is causing the components to refresh. Okay. Oh god, this is indicating to me that there is a level of redundancy in this system that is performantly bad, but I can iron that stuff out later. It looks like we're selecting multiple times. Huh. Yeah, there's something about the way that we're closing out all of our screens simultaneously that is... like, close to destination is calling internal pop, and this internal pop, it's looping through all of them, popping all of them, but I didn't anticipate the fact that as part of that pop, we're calling open, close, and update selection on every one of these calls. It's probably a good idea to be doing this in most situations, though, to make sure that we clean everything up properly. Okay, so this is still on select. This is all still coming from the original spot of on submit, right? Yeah, okay, we're still deep inside of the closing of the destination menu. So all of this shouldn't matter because we're going to override it here. So now we're going to call deselect. Deselect is going to do a... hopefully hit here without any problems. We do. This is going to go through each of the different units. So this is the thief. So we're going to get into here. We're going to change our cache data. Oh, this was a copy and paste error. We want this to set to null in this situation. That's what the bug was. When we were writing the code, we copy and pasted something. In the deselect situation, we don't want to set a cached ability. We want to, if the cached ability equals what we have, we want to set it to null. I can think of some other reasons why that might be broken, honestly. Oh, I don't have any fire to use that. I need to get... the next thing on my list is to increase the messaging. I want to add a little description box underneath the actual action menu telling you a little bit more information. And I think in general, like right now, this is only explaining the MP pips, but this also has a hidden cost of requiring 1 point of shadow magic as well, and I need to figure out a way to display that in the menu. We had older ways in the old combat, but we just haven't figured out how we want to display it in this the new style. Let's go here and do this one. Like, and that produces shadow, so we want to find a way to represent that as well. Yeah. So the timing is a little bit off on like when the 1 shows up and when we refresh the menu, but overall, like, that is working correctly now, quote unquote. It does feel a little weird too when we go to red here and it goes back to full and then they disappear when we actually use the ability. Like, some of the timing feels off, but at least it's reading correctly for the most part, right? Like I still need to fix the switching when we hit the Y. We also need to send a message, but like for the most part, when I do a thing, the UI is reflecting it correctly. It just maybe doesn't do it. Oh, the green got stuck. Okay, so it's not perfect. Never mind. Interesting. Okay. There's some bugs. There's still a few bugs. So there's the Y pressing, and then it still can get green stuck on. and the timing is off. But I care a little bit less about the timing. We can resolve those things in the future with some sequencing. But as long as the data is showing correctly at the right times, that's more important to me. So the Y press, let's see if we can solve the Y press real quick. Combat action screen. On secondary press. After that, we also want to send a message with the ability data. And the ability data should be the currently selected item. I mean, after we call update, it should be... That's a little weird, honestly. Because I would imagine after we call swap, we should be updating the data. Updating the data should be refreshing the components. Do we have... And that should be calling update selection, I would think. Unless we have to do that manually. Screen controller. Screen controller, we call screen.update selection with get last selection. But we should be able to call this menu get first. We do this on left and right trigger. Yeah, so we need to do that here. So we're not actually updating this one. We're not actually updating the screen afterwards. So after we update the menu, we then proceed to update its selection. And we really only want to do that on swap. Okay. Look at that. Ended up adding those braces back. But only because I had to. Okay. Attacking, that's fine. Attacking, that's fine. Fight you. Shadow Bolt. Follow's getting wrecked. Switch to Giju. Shadow Bolt back. Need them to not kill before we get to our actual turn. Would be really nice. Please don't murder. Okay, good. That looks to be working now. When we hit Y, it auto adds the green. That does, however, reset our selection to first, which I don't hate. It feels a little weird. It's not really intended, quote-unquote, functionality, but we probably want to update our selection regardless because we've just changed our menu out. The cursor isn't actually selecting anything. It's just the UI hasn't refreshed the position of the cursor, I think. So we probably want to do an update first anyways. Although it was working. Whatever. We'll figure it out. But so now if I do that... the green's not going away again. Okay, so there is something base still wrong with the green disappearing. It was working in some spots, but not all. Okay. So the red is fixed, but the green doesn't look fully fixed. All right. I think I might be good for a bit, though. Got a couple people hanging out. Are you enjoying the stream? You just lurking to support, or are people actually enjoying? Because if people are enjoying the stream, I'm willing to swing back. Otherwise, I might just continue coding for the rest of the evening on my own. But I honestly can ramble and talk at the same time and code. Doesn't affect me too much. So, unlockable character says enjoying with a period. The intensity is there. 500 for the stretch. All right. I think I'm going to stop the stream here, but we're going to return in like an hour-ish or so, and we'll probably continue streaming for the rest of the evening, kind of working through bugs. Might also do some gameplay stuff. I know I've been kind of deep into the code. It might be a little more interesting if we kind of dive into some of the design space as well. So we might come back and do some designy type things as well. But yeah, I'm going to take a break, and I'll be back in about an hour. and we'll continue streaming then, and we'll see what we get up to. But continue working through it. Fair unlockable. I appreciate it. That comment actually means a lot. That's a really insightful thing for me to know. So, okay, I'll be back in an hour, and I'll see folks sometime then. If not tonight, I'll see you around. I'll still be streaming in the future. But thanks for lurking. Thanks for watching. And I'll see you when I see you. But I'll be back in an hour.